In a world where high-tech military gadgets dominate the battlefield, a new innovative paper aircraft defies expectations. Cheap, expendable, and surprisingly effective, the Corvo Precision Payload Delivery System is shaping up to be an origami weapon of doom in Ukraine's battle against Russia. A cheap and flat-packed drone made out of cardboard that can be assembled quickly and easily. Despite its humble appearance, the new Australian unmanned aerial vehicle can also pack quite a punch. With a flight range of up to 75 miles, it can deliver ammunition, food, and medicine directly to the front lines, carrying payloads of up to 11 pounds. At least, that is the benign mission being outlined for the drone publicly. In reality, the system is stealthy and versatile, able to perform reconnaissance missions, gather crucial intelligence, and even drop small explosive devices on unsuspecting enemies. Defying conventions with its economical design and surprising potency, this drone is proving that high cost and high tech aren't prerequisites for valuable military equipment. It demonstrates that even the most unassuming materials can be transformed into formidable weapons. Since the onset of the conflict with Russia in 2022, Ukraine has undertaken a significant expansion of its drone fleet. This includes an eclectic mix of new models, one of which is an unconventional paper plane drone from Australia. Although thousands of small quadcopter drones are currently in use by the Ukrainian armed forces, their operators often lament their limited range, expressing a preference for the extended reach provided by fixed-wing designs. In a press release, SciPac, a Melbourne-based company, announced that it has successfully manufactured and shipped its unique fixed-wing paper Corvo Precision Payload Delivery System drones to Ukraine. This significant achievement came after the Australian Defence Department announced funds for the purchase of essential defence technology and equipment for Ukraine. According to SciPac CEO Amanda Holt, quote, "PPDS is an Australian capability that will help the Ukrainian people defend their country and is proof of the world-leading autonomous systems capabilities in Australian industry. This capability is the result of an innovative journey with the Army and the Defence Innovation Hub and demonstrates the importance of collaboration between defense and industry on capability development. Although the PPDS is simple and basic, it is still more advanced than some homemade drones that the Ukrainian forces have successfully utilized for bombing missions, thanks to its vastly superior software and ingenious design." Launched by a catapult, the paper drone showcases its adaptability and resilience in challenging environments. These are critical features for military operations with tactical complications, such as those in the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Although not constructed from durable metal or plastic, they're coated with wax to withstand wet weather conditions. The paper drones can autonomously launch, fly, and land, removing the cognitive load on soldiers during operations, no longer requiring them to control or even monitor them during a sortie. While GPS guidance is utilized when available, the control software can determine the drone's position based on speed and heading if it's jammed. This feature allows the PPDS to carry out missions even under complete radio jamming conditions, which is critical in Ukraine, where Russian electronic warfare has reportedly taken down numerous drones. The Corvo Precision Payload Delivery System drones also stand out for their unique packaging design. Flat packs allow for efficient shipping, with 24 pizza-sized boxes fitting on a pallet. These boxes contain the drone's assembly materials, tools, motors, and batteries, allowing battlefront troops to deploy the drones quickly with little experience or technical expertise, not unlike buying low-cost furniture and assembling it at home. After trying it out, Australian soldiers found that assembling the Corvo PPDS drones was straightforward, requiring only a glue gun, knife, pen, tape, and rubber bands, with a spanner needed to attach the propeller. Lance Corporal Will Coyer, in an interview with the military blog, reported that while certain parts required attention to detail, the precision manufacturing of the flat pack kit made it simple, and the Corvo PPDS was all around easy to put together. One could envision a multitude of scenarios in which a silent, autonomous, nearly invisible, and disposable fixed-wing drone could be used. Imagine, as dusk descends over the disputed territory, a Corvo Precision Payload Delivery System drone is launched from a hidden position deep in the Ukrainian lines. Made from simple cardboard and resembling an oversized model airplane, it glides into the darkening sky, undetectable to radar and silent to the ear. Its mission is twofold. First, It is tasked with delivering critical medical supplies to a beleaguered frontline unit that's been cut off from its supply line. The drone, guided by its sophisticated navigation system, swoops down silently over the predetermined drop zone. It releases its payload, a small container packed with much-needed bandages, antiseptics, and painkillers. After completing the first part of its mission, the drone ascends again and changes course, heading deeper into enemy territory. Now it transforms from a benevolent supply vessel to a stealthy reconnaissance unit. Its onboard cameras scan the landscape below, looking for signs of enemy troop movements, fortifications, and artillery positions. As it glides silently over an enemy encampment, it captures high-resolution images of troop dispositions and equipment placements, information critical for planning future offensives or avoiding heavily fortified areas. Its final role on this mission is the most dangerous. The drone, now acting as a bomber, carries a small but powerful explosive device. A Soviet-era RKG-3 anti-tank grenade, for example, weighs only 2.35 pounds. Locating a high-value target, an enemy ammunition depot, the paper plane heads straight for it on a crash course. Moments later, the depot erupts in flames, causing chaos in the Russian ranks. So, your drone crashed. So what? The paper drone is so cheap that it hardly matters. Delivering low-cost, easily replaceable drones in volume is made possible by its affordable price, between $1,000 to $5,000 Australian dollars per drone. This is in stark contrast to America's $30 million General Atomics MQ-9 Reaper and other currently utilized unmanned aerial vehicles, which also require expensive and time-consuming maintenance. While a cardboard drone may not last more than a few missions, the airframe could be replaced with a more robust yet still economical material like plywood. With around 100 Australian drones delivered every month, the PPDS combines innovation, affordability, and efficiency, all with a formidable price tag. In an interview with the British newspaper The Daily Express, Ukraine's ambassador to Australia, Vasyl Miroshnichenko, stated about the Corvo Precision Payload Delivery System drones, quote, "It looks like something that kids would play with, but when you see what it can do, it's really amazing." According to news reports, the armed forces of Ukraine have already sent more than 60 PPDS drones on sorties to the front line, operating under challenging conditions. In the crucible of the 2003 Iraq War, under the relentless sun of the desert battleground, a new era of warfare was dawning. As the conflict began, the Royal Air Force's 617th Squadron swept in, armed with an unprecedented weapon system. Their aircraft carried an experimental marvel, an air-launched cruise missile of such advanced technology it still lived in the realm of dreams for most. Though this tech was not yet meant to see the light of day, the turbulent times called for desperate measures. Veiled under the guise of an accelerated testing schedule, the RAF opted to unleash their precious Storm Shadow missiles on the battlefields of the Middle East. Undetectable by most conventional methods, these projectiles sliced through the air at near supersonic speeds, streaking across 340 miles. The RAF Tornadoes were now armed with technology decades ahead of anything the enemy could possess. 20 years later, the stealthy projectile continues to redefine the fate of nations across the globe. Experts speculate its potency could tip the scales in Ukraine's favor in its struggle against Russian aggression. As the Cold War spread worldwide, the desperate arms race and search for nuclear deterrence solutions would soon launch Britain into the path of developing air-launched cruise missiles. During the 1960s and 70s, Britain birthed the Standoff missile, the WE-177 program, conceived as a nuclear weapons initiative. After the WE-177 program was phased out in the 90s, the UK shifted its focus to submarine-launched ballistic missiles, specifically the Trident, in collaboration with the United States. But the lessons learned and the technological prowess gained from the WE-177 were not forgotten. They would inform the next generation of air-to-surface missiles, including the groundbreaking Storm Shadow initiative. The UK joined forces with France and Italy to conceive the Storm Shadow missile in the late 1990s. This sophisticated weapon system was born out of the collective genius at French firm Matra, later known as MBDA, and marked a pivotal turn in Britain's cruise missile narrative. The Storm Shadow's design prevailed against multiple submissions from international defense giants, including McDonnell Douglas, Texas Instruments and Short Brothers, Hughes and Smiths Industries, Daimler-Benz Aerospace and Bofors, GEC Marconi, and Rafael. the successful blueprint was built upon Matra's earlier design for the Apache anti-runway cruise missile. The dawn of the new millennium saw the first fully guided firing of the Storm Shadow, launched from a Mirage 2000N at the CEL Biscarrosse range in France. Shortly thereafter, the first British test occurred from a Tornado at BAE Wharton. Over the years, the Storm Shadow was integrated with multiple aircraft, including a successful pairing with the Eurofighter Typhoon in 2013 at Italy's Decimo Manu airbase. Maintaining identical capabilities, the Scalp EG and Storm Shadow differ only in their integration with aircraft. In July 2016, the UK's Ministry of Defence invested further in the system, awarding a £28 million contract to support the Storm Shadow over the subsequent 5 years. Crafted to pierce the defenses of static targets, such as bunkers, facilities, and bridges, it removed the risk of a bomber encountering enemy air defenses. The new technology initially launched from the RAF's Tornado GR4, but plans were laid for its integration with the Eurofighter Typhoon. Defense Secretary Jeff Hoon noted in 2003, quote, "The Storm Shadow brings a significant shift to our strategic options." His optimism was validated as the missile's deployment proved highly successful in combat. One of the Storm Shadow's defining features is its fire and forget mechanism. It can be launched from any location up to 155 miles from the intended target, offering a substantial safety buffer for the bomber. Upon release, the Storm Shadow unfolds its wings and assumes a low-altitude, terrain-hugging trajectory to elude radar detection and enemy defenses. The missile's navigation is two-pronged, constantly updating GPS data of its location and digital terrain profile matching to align with what it observes on the ground. As the missile nears its final approach, the nose cone jettisons to reveal a high-resolution infrared camera. The target recognition hardware then cross-references the approaching ground visuals with the stored image of the target. The missile continually adjusts its course and attack angle, delivering a surgical strike to minimize collateral damage and unintended casualties. The warhead of the Storm Shadow missile follows a two-stage detonation. An initial penetration charge pierces the target, allowing the following larger charge to infiltrate and detonate. This dual-action strategy amplifies the missile's destructive potential, ensuring maximum damage with every hit. In essence, the French-made Scalp EG cruise missile is the identical twin to Storm Shadow. Both evolved from the earlier French Apache anti-runway missile, underscoring the shared lineage and technological prowess across nations. Storm Shadow's operational debut came amid the turmoil of the 2003 Iraq invasion. The missile was hurriedly put through an accelerated testing schedule and entrusted to the RAF 617th Squadron. The Storm Shadow's power became even more evident during the 2011 Libyan military intervention. French Air Force Rafales, Italian Air Force, and Royal Air Force Tornadoes unleashed the Storm Shadow's wrath on pro-Gaddafi targets. Critical enemy locations, such as the Al Jufra Air Base and a military bunker in Sirte, the hometown of Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi, were laid bare under the missile's precision. Italy's debut use of the Storm Shadow in live combat reached a staggering 97% success rate, reinforcing the missile's reputation. On June 26, 2016, the RAF deployed 4 Storm Shadow missiles targeting an ISIS bunker in Iraq. Launched from 2 Tornado aircraft, the missiles scored direct hits, penetrating deep into the bunker. In April 2018, the UK government announced the use of Storm Shadow missiles launched by Panavia Tornado GR4s to strike a chemical weapons facility in Syria. The Him Shinshar chemical weapons storage complex near Homs caved under the barrage of 9 US Tomahawks, 8 British Storm Shadows, and French MDCN and Scalp cruise missiles. March 11, 2021, marked a new chapter in the Storm Shadow's history as 2 Royal Air Force Typhoon FGR-4 jets launched the missile against a cave complex southwest of Erbil City in northern Iraq. A substantial number of ISIS fighters were reported at the location, marking the Typhoon's first combat use of the Storm Shadow. On May 11, 2023, the United Kingdom revealed that it was supplying the Ukrainian military with Storm Shadow missiles amid the Russian invasion of Ukraine. in reference to Russia's use of longer-range munitions such as the AS-24 Killjoy hypersonic missile, 3M-54 Kalibr cruise missile, and Shahed-136 one-way attack drone. UK Defence Minister Ben Wallace framed the delivery as, quote, a calibrated, proportionate response to Russia's escalation. The acquisition represents an enhancement for the Ukrainian military, enabling the capability to target command and control nodes and logistics points in occupied Crimea over extended ranges, hampering Russia's ability to sustain the front line. Similarly, France declared it would supply Ukraine with Scalp-EG, its version of the missile. The UK confirmed on May 18th that Ukraine had already successfully used the Storm Shadow. Claims emerged from Russia that Ukraine had utilized Storm Shadow missiles to strike industrial sites in Luhansk on May 13, 2023, merely 2 days after their delivery announcement. According to a report by Russian media, these cruise missiles were launched from specially modified Su-24 strike aircraft and were accompanied by MiG-29 and Su-27 fighters equipped with AGM-88 HARMs. Ukrainian command reportedly uses UAVs and ADM-160 MAL decoys to distract Russian air defenses and secure the aircraft and ordnance from interception. Ukrainian Minister of Defense Alexei Reznikov confirmed the Su-24 as the Storm Shadow launch platform for the Ukrainian Air Force, with a photo of an Su-24 MR armed with a missile on each underwing pylon. He claimed that the missiles had hit 100% of their targets by the end of May, a statistic contested by Russia's defense ministry, which asserted some had been intercepted. A notable operation involving the Storm Shadow took place on June 12th, resulting in the demise of Major General Sergei Goryachev, the Chief of Staff of the 35th Combined Arms Army in Zaporizhia Oblast. On June 22nd, the Chungar Bridge, linking Crimea with Kherson Oblast, was targeted by a Storm Shadow missile to disrupt Russian logistics. Whether in the theaters of Iraq, Libya, or more recently Ukraine, the Storm Shadow's prowess, alongside its French counterpart Scalp-EG, underscores its enduring significance as a formidable weapon in the global arms arsenal. On February 23, 2024, Ukraine dealt a devastating blow to the Russian military's prestige by downing a massive A-50 AWACS, known as a flying radar aircraft, marking the second such takedown in just months. This critical attack essentially blinded Russian forces, stripping them of the critical intelligence and situational awareness the A-50 provided. The loss of the Airborne Command Center was a severe hit, as its value exceeded $330 million. Compounding the shock, official reports confirmed that the A-50 was targeted well within Russian borders, a zone presumed safe from Ukraine's anti-aircraft arsenals. The narrative states that an antiquated Ukrainian Soviet-era S-200 missile system brought down this costly Russian asset, and a striking video capturing the moment of impact seems to corroborate this claim. However, not everyone is buying it. The destruction of one of the globe's most advanced air surveillance systems over its own territory has sparked intrigue. Experts dissecting the footage suggest the X-200 explanation might be a smokescreen, concealing Ukraine's use of a top-secret American-made weapon capable of swatting these powerful aircraft from the sky with ease, even at incredibly long distances. The A-50 AWACS, or Airborne Warning and Control System, is an enormous warplane with a wingspan stretching over 50 meters. Crafted during the heat of the Cold War by the Soviet Union, it is still one of the world's most advanced radar and control airborne command centers. First soaring through the clouds in the 1980s, this flying radar is built on the robust backbone of the Ilyushin IL-76 transport. Mounted atop its body, a colossal radar dome whirls, throwing its electronic eyesight over hundreds of miles, playing a critical role in air defense and coordinating the might of the Air Force. At its core, the A-50 plays the crucial role of the eyes in the sky, painting a live canvas of the airspace by spotting and tailing airborne and sea surface threats. It's the maestro, directing interceptor and strike jets to their marks. It doubles as a mobile command post for theater-level operations, knitting aerial, ground, and naval forces together into a cohesive unit. This airborne sentinel magnifies situational awareness, extends the reach against adversary aircraft, and amplifies force potency by choreographing synchronized offensive and defensive maneuvers. With the Soviet Union's curtain call in 1991, Russia inherited this fleet of aerial watchdogs. The Russian aerospace forces have since doubled down, infusing these birds with cutting-edge tech and communications, birthing the A-50U variant. This modernized iteration boasts sharper surveillance eyes, a broader operational leash, and improved conditions for its guardians, cementing its role as a cornerstone in Russia's military aviation arsenal. The A-50 AWACS's capabilities make it an indispensable tool for Russia in the context of the Ukrainian conflict. It enhances Russia's ability to maintain situational awareness, command and control forces, and effectively counter Ukrainian military actions. As a crown jewel of the skies, Russia has packed the A-50 with a hefty punch of defenses, ready to repel any airborne threats. It's rigged with top-notch electronic countermeasures, or ECMs, that throw enemy radar and missile guidance systems off their game. On top of that, it's equipped with chaff and flare dispensers, decoys against those heat-seeking and radar-guided missiles. And let's not forget, it's sporting reinforced protection throughout her hull to withstand incoming projectiles. Yet, no matter the defenses, Ukraine found a way to blind the bear. On Friday, February 23, 2024, the skies bore witness to a staggering demonstration of Ukrainian aerial might as their Air Force announced the downing of a second Russian A-50, one of Russia's crown jewels in reconnaissance. CNN captured this breathtaking spectacle, airing footage of the A-50's demise. Earlier in the year, around mid-January, the Ukrainian Air Force flexed its sharpshooting muscles by knocking out another Russian A-50 over the southern expanse of Zaporizhia. That operation wasn't just a single triumph, but a double whammy, as they also sent an Ilyushin IL-22, an airborne command post, tumbling from the sky. This 1-2 punch severely affected the enemy's command and control structures, diminishing their battlefield oversight. British intelligence sheds light on the critical role these radar-fitted command birds play in Russian military strategies. They're the eyes in the sky, sounding the alarm at the faintest hint of danger while masterminding operations from the heavens. With these crucial assets now missing from their arsenal, Russia's military effectiveness in the region has been severely hamstrung, leaving them wary of deploying more for fear they'll share the same grim fate. The burning question remains of how Ukraine managed to clip the wings of some of the most sophisticated birds in the sky, designed to sniff out threats from miles away. After scrutinizing the footage of the A-50's takedown, an air combat expert believes he's cracked the code. According to him, Ukraine's success hinges on a cutting-edge American drone. A seasoned vet from the Indian Air Force took to social media to lay it out straight. The Russian Air Force isn't in the habit of tossing their crucial air pieces into the fray without a solid game plan. If their A-50s are getting knocked out of the sky, it's because they bumped into a game-changer they didn't see coming. The retired pilot didn't mince words when he laid out his perspective. Quote, "Are the Russians such big fools to continue targeting their vital air assets in a blue-on-blue deal? Or do the Ukrainians now have a drone modified to interdict 200 kilometers plus near Russian air assets, clinically cued and steered with targeting data from Western long-range surveillance, and launch a heat-seeking Stinger or an ASRAAM with deadly accuracy?" He then dropped a bombshell on what he believes is powering these audacious long-range hits. Quote, "The Ukrainian long-shot concept may be a reality in my opinion. In this video, the Russian SAM may have been launched to shoot down the Ukrainian UAV, poised for an ambush of the A-50 recovering back." The Longshot drone, a brainchild of General Atomics Aeronautical Systems and nurtured by the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA in the United States, represents a revolutionary leap in air-launched UAV technology. Launched from the safety of fighters or bombers, it boosts the range and deadliness of air-to-air missiles while shielding manned warplanes from the teeth of the fight. Nestled securely in friendly skies, the drone shoots across hostile airspace, dramatically stretching the combat radius of its mothership. Once it's got a bead on its prey, this UAV doesn't just kamikaze and call it a day. Instead, it fires precision-guided missiles from its arsenal, maintaining a safe distance while cutting down the reaction time of its target to mere seconds. Sporting a sleek and elusive design, with a fuselage that cuts through the air and a high-mounted wing that slices a moderate sweep across the sky, this drone is built to go unnoticed. Its V-shaped tail and multifaceted propulsion system make it a ghost in the clouds, carrying its payload in a side-mounted bay. In February 2021, DARPA awarded contracts to General Atomics, Lockheed Martin, and Northrop Grumman for the preliminary design of the Longshot UAV. But here's the kicker. As of the latest info, the Longshot UAV is still in development. If Ukraine's wielding something that smells like long-shot tech, it signals a seismic shift in the West's playbook, laying down a marker of unprecedented support in the face of aggression. Military experts are zeroing in on the possibility of a long-shot drone being the culprit behind the last moments of the A-50's flight, based on its behavior and intelligence. Samir Joshi, the lead engineer at New Space Research and Technologies, a cutting-edge outfit known for its military drone wizardry, pored over the footage and concluded that the aircraft was hugging the deck at about 1,000 feet. It had detected the incoming missile and was juking hard to dodge it. Here's where the plot thickens. Conventional wisdom pins the blame on an S-200 missile for taking down the A-50, but Joshi throws a wrench into that theory with his analysis. Quote, "The S-200 would have lost the guidance link as soon as the A-50 dipped below 2 kilometers of altitude, thanks to the 200-kilometer-plus radar reach of the Ukrainian fire control radar. The A-50's last dance was at around 1 kilometer, nosediving at a blistering 875 miles per hour ground speed. The S-200's hands are tied, without active guidance in the home stretch, so it's not the S-200, nor a Patriot SAM. Given the distance, surface-to-air missiles stationed in Ukraine couldn't have touched a target inside Russia, and with the S-200 out of the picture, Joshi hints at a Ukrainian sleight of hand, a new trick up their sleeve for neutralizing key Russian air assets deep behind enemy lines, the long-shot drone system. As conflict with Russia rages on, Ukraine's urgent plea to the United States reveals a startling shift in the tides of war. Their artillery, once a bulwark against advancing forces, is depleting rapidly. The numbers are staggering. The Ukrainian army burns through 5,000 to 6,000 155mm caliber shells daily, while the US can only produce 15,000 a month. In response, a controversial solution emerges from the shadows, a weapon that many nations have shunned and over 100 countries have outright banned. A weapon that can change the course of battles, but carries a haunting legacy. The world is watching and asking, what is this potentially game-changing technology? Why is it making a comeback now? And at what cost? Ukraine's forces are currently grappling with a pressing issue, a shortage of artillery shells caused by the intense battles in southern and eastern Ukraine, mirroring the high consumption rates seen among the Russian forces. The ongoing conflict in these regions has elevated the importance of artillery as a critical weapon. Facing the daunting challenge of dislodging the well-entrenched Russian troops stretched along a 1,000-kilometer battlefront, the Ukrainian forces urgently seek replacements for the depleted artillery shells. However, their Western allies struggle to keep up with the demand, leaving a critical gap in the much-needed ammunition supply. In light of the scarcity, Ukraine has turned to the United States, requesting additional cluster munitions to target the entrenched Russian infantry. Some experts argue that deploying cluster bombs could be instrumental in suppressing enemy fire from these trenches, thereby granting Ukrainian forces crucial time to navigate Russian minefields. Royal United Services Institute, or RUSI, analysts highlight that cluster munitions could aid Ukraine in breaking through Russian trenches without posing a significant threat to civilians, given Russia's widespread use of unmarked minefields. Nevertheless, others contend that alternative conventional weapons might achieve the same strategic objectives without resorting to cluster munitions. Since February 2022, both Russia and Ukraine have been employing cluster munitions. Neither country has signed a treaty banning these controversial weapons. The United States, while also not a signatory to the treaty, has consistently voiced its disapproval of Russia's extensive use of cluster munitions in the past. Cluster munitions are a specific type of explosive ordnance dropped from the air or launched from the ground. They disperse numerous small submunitions or bomblets over a wide area from rockets, missiles, or artillery shells. The primary purpose of these cluster bombs varies. Some are intended to neutralize personnel and destroy vehicles, while others are meant to target infrastructure like runways or power lines. Originating during World War II with the German SD-2 or butterfly bomb, the technology was later independently developed by the United States, Russia, and Italy. Throughout the 1970s to 1990s, many countries integrated cluster bombs into their standard munitions arsenal, leading to production by at least 34 countries and usage by only 23. Similar principles of dispersal have been applied to artillery shells for a considerable period, often referred to as improved conventional munitions or ICM shells. In the US military, they've earned colorful monikers like firecracker or popcorn shells. From a military perspective, cluster munitions can prove highly effective against entrenched ground troops in fortified positions, creating hazardous conditions in large areas that would otherwise necessitate meticulous clearance operations. But they do present a significant hazard. Cluster munitions, though designed to explode upon impact, can present a dangerous problem when they fail to detonate immediately, especially on wet or soft ground. These unexploded bomblets pose a grave threat to civilians, as they may unexpectedly detonate if disturbed, leading to tragic consequences. Russian cluster munitions in particular have a troublingly high dud rate of 40%, leaving a significant number of hazardous unexploded munitions scattered on the ground. In comparison, the average dud rate for other cluster munitions is estimated to be around 20%, highlighting the severity of the issue. The Pentagon claims its own cluster bomblets have a much lower dud rate at less than 3%. To address this issue, over 100 countries, including the UK, France, and Germany, have united under the Convention on Cluster Munitions, a global treaty that renders the use or storage of cluster munitions illegal. This treaty serves to protect civilian populations from the indiscriminate and devastating impact of these weapons. The use of cluster munitions is heavily criticized by human rights organizations who strongly condemn their deployment. Such organizations deem cluster munitions abhorrent and consider their use a potential war crime, emphasizing the urgent need to put an end to their proliferation. Chatham House and RUSI experts highlight that cluster munitions pose risks to civilians even after the conflict. They point out that Ukraine plans to use these weapons against Russian field fortifications in open countryside, already surrounded by unmarked minefields and unexploded Russian ordnance, making the areas extremely hazardous for civilians. To aid Ukraine, the United States has decided to provide cluster munitions, regardless of their controversial nature. Many of Ukraine's international allies are concerned about the U.S. decision, knowing that both Russia and Ukraine have already used cluster munitions in the ongoing war, despite their dangerous consequences. The United Nations has urged all parties to stop using these weapons immediately, as they pose long-term risks to local communities. The decision to supply cluster munitions has faced strong opposition from Democrats and human rights advocates in the U.S., creating a heated debate lasting several months. The argument is that this weakens the U.S.'s moral stance in the conflict, potentially leading to accusations of hypocrisy, considering the weapon's devastating nature. This move may also strain relations with Western allies, which could play into the plans of Russian President Vladimir Putin, who would benefit from tensions between the U.S. and its allies. In response, Putin issued a warning. He explained that while Russia possesses various kinds of cluster munitions, they have refrained from using them, despite at one point facing shortages of ammunition. However, he emphasized that if these weapons were used against Russia, they would respond in kind. As Ukraine launches a major offensive to liberate its occupied territory, breaking through Russian defenses is challenging due to complex obstacles, minefields, and extensive trench lines, all while facing Russian artillery, UAVs, and helicopters. Ukrainian artillery is crucial for suppressing Russian fire and enabling ground troops to assault the trenches effectively. However, Ukraine faces challenges due to fewer artillery pieces and finite ammunition stocks compared to the Russian military, limiting the duration of its high-tempo operations. To support Ukraine's counteroffensive, the U.S. is providing dual-purpose improved conventional munition rounds, enhancing the efficiency of artillery fire against entrenched enemy troops. Several countries, including the UK, Canada, Spain, and Germany, are worried about Ukraine receiving and using cluster bombs. Ukraine assured the White House that these munitions would not be deployed in civilian areas and that records of their usage would be maintained. After the conflict, Ukraine promised to conduct demining operations to safeguard civilians. However, legal and security experts argue that using cluster munitions may violate international humanitarian law. They emphasize that regardless of Russia's aggression and any country's stance on the Convention on Cluster Munitions, all parties involved in armed conflicts must follow international humanitarian law. These rules seek to balance military needs with humanitarian concerns, protecting civilians and reducing unnecessary suffering.